Hi, today we're going to model realistic circuit wires in Fusion 360, like these ones here. We'll be connecting two black ground wires, also called earth wires, and four red power wires between soldered pins on a perf board. These are 2.54mm pitch DuPont pin headers already inserted into a 72 by 47mm universal perf board. I designed this circuit using Fritzing some time ago. If you'd like to see how and why I created it, take a look at part 2 of my DIY Autonomous Mobile Robot Building series. There's a link in the description and at the end of this video. These wires follow paths that reflect the real-world layout of the circuit. Check out part 3 of my DIY Autonomous Mobile Robot Building series, where I show how I built and tested the actual circuit. A link is in the description and at the end of this video. Back in Fusion 360 now, the perf board is only showing the soldered points. Let's start by creating a new component, naming it red wire, and clicking OK. To define the wire paths, we use the Fit Point Spline tool. Here I've already sketched the first wire. Initially I sketched the second wire path by selecting the Fit Point Spline tool, selecting the end point of the first wire path as the starting point of the second wire path, and added a few fit points as I progressed to the target endpoint for the second wire. To adjust the curve, press M for the Move Copy tool and select and move each fit point until the shape of the spline path looks right. All was going well, or so I thought, until I finished the sketch and attempted to sweep along the second wire's spline using the same profile circle shared with the first wire. I selected Sweep from Create, selected the profile circle at the start of the second wire, which is the same as the profile circle at the end of the first wire, then selected the second profile circle at the end of the second wire, and then I selected the new spline path of the second wire for the path. When I attempted to perform a sweep operation along the second spline path to form the second wire, Fusion 360 didn't allow it, likely because both wires shared a single profile. It gave an error saying the body would intersect itself. In other words, Fusion 360 seemed to treat the second wire as part of the first. Here's how I worked around this issue. With the bodies of the soldering points hidden, I selected the profile circle at the start of the second wire, which is the end of the first wire. From construction, I selected an offset plane, dragged the offset plane away from the profile circle by a small arbitrary distance of 0.4mm and hit OK. This should allow Fusion 360 to give a clean, isolated point of reference to calculate the sweep operation for the second wire. Create a new sketch and select the offset plane we have just created. Press P to project and project the endpoint of the first wire so that it becomes a separate start point for the second wire. Select the circle tool and create a 1.5mm diameter circle centered at this projected point. We'll just swivel the design around and tilt it at an angle. You can now see the profile circle for the start of the second wire offset from the profile circle at the endpoint of the first wire. This gives us a clean starting point for the sweep operation. We can finish the sketch and activate the main design. As you can see, I have already sketched the circle centered about the endpoint of the second wire, and I have also sketched a circle for each other connection point of the other wires of the circuit. Let's unhide all the bodies of the soldering points. Let's edit the sketch we've just created. For the other end of the second wire, press P to project and project the center of the endpoint of the second wire. I could have just projected the circle that has already been sketched on the other sketch, but for some reason I sketched a new 1.5mm circle, which is okay too. Now we can select the Fit Point Spline tool and sketch a spline while creating fit points by clicking the mouse. And then finally select the end point and finish the line by selecting the check mark. Please note that this spline is not constrained because there's no real need to constrain it. Turning the design on its side, we can see that the spline spline is lying flat on the offset plane. So press M for move, copy, and move the fit points upward to make the spline curve upwards as well. Select a fit point and move one of the arrows like so. If you select another fit point, the manipulator jumps to that new fit point. Carry on adjusting the fit points while viewing it at different angles until you get the shape you want. Also, another way to move a fit point is to click on it first, right click, select move copy, and then move it to a desired position. Once we have finalized the shape of the spline path, we can exit the sketch mode by selecting finish sketch. Now for the exciting part, creating the wire itself. From create, select sweep, select the first profile circle, the start of the second wire, then move over to the second profile circle and select that too. In the sweep palette, you will see that the two profiles have been selected, which is good. Hit select on the sweep palette and select the spline for the path. We can see that the wire has been created, but the operation is set to cut. So let's change that to new body. And there it is, the second wire. Let's color the wire by pressing A for appearance and then dragging a red pigment onto the wire body. Looking pretty good. Let's switch from orthographic to perspective for a more realistic look. I essentially use the same method for creating the remaining wires. For this third wire, I sketched out a spline path in an S shape. I forgot to activate red wire before sketching it, so this wire is part of the main design. Not a major issue, but it means editing needs to be done through the main folder. Zoom up to the first solder point of the third wire. I can't seem to be able to select the circular profile for the third wire because of the solder point, so let's hide that. There we can see the profile circle and that it has been nudged upward from the other profile circle belonging to the first wire by using an offset plane as I showed you earlier on. Go to create and select sweep, and we can see in the sweep palette that one profile has been selected. Now proceed to move over to the end point of the spline path of the third wire, but it looks like I haven't sketched or projected a circle for our endpoint profile, so let's do that now. I sketched a circle on the offset plane centered about the endpoint and finished the sketch. Select sweep from create, select this circular profile and then the other circular profile at the other end of the spline, switch to the path and select the spline itself, and there the 3D model of the wire appears. Let's add a red pigment for the newly created third red wire. And really it's just a repetition of the same procedures for each wire that you want to create. I created the first and second black wires according to the exact same technique. And there we have our 3D model of the black and red wires of the circuit. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you so much for watching.